Hey everybody, it's Josh. I'm in a place right by a road, so it might be a little loud, but it's also a nice little place where I come to find quartz and stuff. I used to rock hound here a lot. I was passing by, I figured I'd stop in. I want to talk today about Christian hypocrisy, but mainly about how to evangelize and bring people to the faith. We live in a world where it is basically everything in our culture goes against Christian values. But we are people of the world. We live in this world, so we just automatically give in to society and culture instead of trying to be better Christians. Now, for me, that was one thing that turned me off. Whoop. A wasp landed on me. One thing that turned me off when I was younger about Christians was basically they were the anti-fun group. I loved going out and partying, drinking, carrying on, hooking up with as many people as I could, many women as I could. Just, to me, that was the good life when I was a, late teen, early 20s. And the Christians just, they looked down on me. They looked down on me no matter what. Even if they didn't know what I was doing and how I was living my life. They would look down on me because they were very pious and very, in my mind, hypocritical. Now, I know I've said it a lot, but Frank Turek said a few things that really, really struck me. First thing he said was, somebody asked him about Christian hypocrisy and why Christians are such hypocrites. And he said, of course we're hypocrites. Come on, we got a seat ready right next to us. Come on down, it's open to all hypocrites. Now, I think that sums up our worldview that we don't portray in the right way to people. And he also said that churches are a hospital for sinners. Now, I struggle, as I'm sure most religious, Christian leaders do, and really Christians in general who are trying to evangelize. I struggle with how to bring people over to the faith. How do I do this? How do I tell them, stop with your life? Stop with this life where you're doing whatever you think is best, where you're getting cheap pleasures and comforts, but you've learned to rely on them. You've learned, hey, these things they work for me. I'm going to drink myself to sleep every night. I'm going to take these drugs for whatever purpose, just to escape usually. How do we show them that God is so far beyond all these pleasures? How do we show them that God is something worth making a sacrifice for? Now, I'll probably butcher this, but my wife and I were just finished watching the show Sweet Tooth on Netflix, which is pretty good show. I mean, it's not the greatest show in the world, but it was a really good ending, I thought. But in it, a guy named Big Man, he's a big ex-football player. He said that his mama used to tell him, there's nothing worth living for in life until you have something you can die for. Something you're willing to give everything for. So let me ask you, what are you willing to sacrifice for? What are you willing to lay down your life for? Now, for me, I was ready to lay down my life for my family, my children, and many of my friends I would have laid down my life for. I say that, but when the time came, would I have? You know, I always had their backs in fights, even if it was their fault. You know, I tried to be loyal as much as I could. But I didn't have anything, before I had children especially, I didn't have anything that I would gladly give my life for. Gladly. Now, until God saved me, I didn't even understand what love meant. I knew that I loved them. I knew that was something that was definitely... Sorry, I saw a rock that I can't help myself. I see a rock that it looks... It's like my kids watched that movie Moana. And it was Tomatula, the big crab or lobster or whatever he is. He's singing about that shiny song. And it always reminds me of rock hounding, because I see something shining, I'm like, gotta get it. But I didn't know what love was. I thought I did. And I had no clue. I really didn't. I really didn't understand how you could love someone you really despise, your enemies. I didn't understand that one bit. It still would be hard if someone hurt the people I loved. And I certainly wouldn't be as quick to forgive as I would like, I'm sure. But I started having a deep connection to all living things. Now, people especially, but we'll start, animals approached me like crazy. Obviously, most of you know about the day I was saved and the white-tailed doe that followed me along for my entire hike. Right beside me walked. She walked, and it was just magical. It was beyond words, the feeling I got from that day. Since that day, I've had animals approach me, wild animals, which I used to see wild animals all the time because I was in the woods all the time, but they would never be comfortable around me like they are now. They would see me and they would fly away or run away or whatever. Now, they just sit there and they'll land in birds will land in a branch in front of me and just chill looking at me. I'm sure I've told the story of I walked up on a hawk who had a squirrel, and I came like within probably 2 feet of him. And he looked up at me and looked back down because he knew I was not a threat. Now, before, if I would have seen anything like that, that hawk would have flown away, before I even got within, 20 feet, definitely. If he saw me approaching, which they can see everything, he would have flown away. Had more deer come up, and I was like, oh, well, maybe these deer are just comfortable with just people in general. I was walking along, just kind of like a little creek, like about this big. I was walking along, and the buck was on the other side of the shore, but really close. I mean, almost close enough to touch because the creek was that small. And he looked up at me and just acted like he didn't care at all. And I was like, well, he must be comfortable with people. Then hikers just walked behind me, and as soon as they did, bam, he was gone. I've had dogs that I know were vicious. I know will just go after people. And all of a sudden, you know, because they snarled and growled at me before I was saved. And now I go up and I talk to them every day, and it was instantly that they stopped growling and snarling at me and are excited to see me all the time. Dogs bark all the time. There's another dog that I pass on my walks, and they leave her outside, unfortunately, all the time in the heat and everything. But she barks at everybody in every car that goes by. It doesn't matter. I hear her all the time because she's only a couple houses down from me. And I'll walk by and she is just so happy to see me. She runs up to me. You know, she's scared of almost everybody, but she runs up to me, and it is magical. These are just a few examples out of probably hundreds I've had since I was saved, of animals just, they can feel that peace. They can feel the Holy Spirit in me and know I'm not a threat to them. I am their friend. And so they are at peace with me, like I'm at, you know, the way we feel inside, truly feel inside. I've always had that fear that animals are going to bite me, especially when I was younger, not so much as an adult, but I had that hesitation, you know, like, and as soon as that fear was gone, animals just completely changed around me. They're completely comfortable with me. Now, I got a guy weed eating or something up here. He's going to be right during my video. All right. Well, we'll try to work through it here. I'm sorry about that, everybody. I wish I could pause it and start again, but I can't. So we'll let them kind of pass a little bit. But I wanted to talk about the people too. So the people, I was becoming a recluse. I was very socially anxious. I would say hello to people sometimes and, you know, like, nod at them. But I really just tried to avoid people. And I still try to avoid crowded places. I'm not crazy about them. But almost everywhere I go, I will I will stand in line. And I even said in a couple videos ago, I stood in line at the DMV and had probably 6 people we were just talking and laughing, and I've never been happy in having a great chat with anyone in the DMV. I didn't think that was a place that was even possible. It's like as close to the depths of hell as you can get, I guess. But everywhere I seem to go, I can have that connection with people. It's not all people. It's just like I'll see some people and I would just feel like almost like a magnetic draw to them. And it feels like when I talk to them that I'm talking to one of my best friends that I haven't talked to in years. And I am so happy to hear about their life. Or I'm so concerned for them to hear their struggles and feel for them, even though I've never met them before. I absolutely have that deep connection with all living things. But how do you get to the point where you can explain to people what this feels like? Now, I know there's an even bigger move for the kind of fire and brimstone preaching, and I get it. This world is fallen. This world is corrupt. But all people know about Christians are what they've seen, and what they've seen is on, first of all, in their own life. They've had either strict parents or parents who didn't believe at all. Both have a negative view on Christians after that. You have movies and television and all forms of entertainment saying how bad Christians are. Now notice they never go after other religions. Very, very, very rarely. I know South Park has mocked Christ for maybe since the first season. I can't even remember. You know, they have the, clown version of Jesus as their character living in South Park there. Pops up. They tried to do an episode where they showed Muhammad, because it was after the, I think it was Charlie Hebdo massacre up there in France, I believe. And they got so many death threats that they had to, at the very last minute, they had Muhammad coming through the door and they had to blur his face. Now that tells you the difference between, that should tell you right there, somehow Islam is celebrated, Christians are demonized. Yet Islam, okay, so we'll take the fresh hell that is known as Reddit. I told you a few times I've been on the Christianity subreddit, and it should just be called the LGBT atheist subreddit, but it is just them mocking Christians non-stop. And this is the reason I did my video on this, weeks ago, because they don't want to just come to the churches. Because I'm telling you, as Frank Turek said, churches are hospitals for sinners. Now, some of them are not very good hospitals. They're probably as good as the hospitals I've witnessed with my parents or me lately, but they don't do a good job in connecting you to God. But these places on Reddit are non-stop. You have to affirm my sin. And again, you can think it's not a sin. That is absolutely fine. But why do you have to go into a place where people, because of the gospel, think it is a sin, and force them to affirm, not only just affirm your sin, but force you to virtue signal for it, to wear your pride colors and announce to the world that you are now LGBT friendly church. Listen to me. I love straight people, gay people, trans people. I love you. Chances are I was more lost and more sinful than you've been, a lot of you. I am not demonizing you because of your desires. I'm not saying that you cannot be who you choose to be. This is absolutely a free country, and I would not have it any other way. But what you're not understanding is there's also freedom of religion, and that we hold the gospel as Word of God. Now, both the Old and the New Testament say there's things that changed from the Old to the New Testament. In the Old Testament, it is an outline of the building of the relationship, the coming of Christ. It is showing us how far humanity had fallen and how much, laying out the guidelines of how to do better, but it was too easy to just give into the sin. And I get it, because I've done it too. I mean, there was no time in my life when I was worried about the sin that I had. I'm not worried about it now either, because God understands that there's sins that I still have and that I'm still working on, but I'm trying to do better. I'm trying to be better. I'm trying to change my life for the better. But all I see when I go on to research Christianity, to research different things, is how bigoted we all are for even believing the Gospels that is actually a sin. And if you have a relationship with God and He tells you that it is not a problem at all, that is fine with me. That is absolutely fine with me. It's your agenda to bring it into the churches to force people to affirm it. That is much different. And it's not just the churches. Again, I rarely go to a church. It is the whole foundation. My biggest resource is online, because that's how I talk to you, and that's how I oftentimes read the Bible. I have my own, but my eyes are bad. But I'm not here to I bring up this again, not to get back into that debate, because again, I want to bring people to God. And I understand that telling them that the life they have built is built on sin is not the way to do it. Now, it is for some preachers, it is for some pastors. I get it. My philosophy is to show people, first of all, you have to be completely broken. You have to be so sick of just non-stop suffering. You have to be so sick of what your bad choices and decisions have led you to. You have to be so sick of the world around you that is going into chaos. You have to be sick of it enough to give up your life. But you have to have that faith when you give up your life that you will be reborn. And that absolutely those sins are still going to be there. Those demons don't care about death. They'll follow you into death. So those demons will still cling on, and they will find every little crack or crevice to sneak back into your life and just destroy you once again. But I'm constantly searching for the best way to heal people, because I don't want somebody who is at that point, who might be, I guess I have to use the LGBT thing, because that is the main one that people seem to gravitate to now. It is non-stop everywhere. So I have to show them not that I want them to give up their life because I think that they're horrible people because they're engaged in, that kind of sexual activity. No. I really, really don't care what kind of desires that you have. I really don't care. It makes no difference whether I think you are a good person or not. It makes no difference on how I love you. I'm telling you, I have too many friends and too many family who are the same way. What I am telling you is I need to find a way to help you understand that it is not just that people, Christians are such bad Christians. They focus on that, and I get it because it's front and center all the time, shoved in your face all the time. But you focus on that. The focus should not be on that. The focus should be on your life in general. Everything that we do in life, every single thing is corrupting us unless we are following and have complete faith in God. But let's talk about, because the church I was at brought up the LGBT issue last Sunday when I went. And I started thinking, I was like, obviously we're there, and that was a good thing that he brought it up. But I'm trying to think of the way that you even approach that. And I don't even think that you have to approach that in the beginning with someone. What you have to do is set them up for a relationship with God. Set them up so they can see, and our weed eater's back, I'm sorry about that. Set them up so they can see exactly what this does to you. Okay, let me put this a different way, because the weed eater threw me off again. You have to try to show people, because in their 20s, they're still clinging to their dopamine hits, to their desires, to their everything. That's all that matters to them. Their ego. Ego is the only thing that really matters to most people in their 20s. In fact, that's when our egos are flaring the highest, because we think we might see that we're not very good at the whole adult thing, but we're like, well, I'm an adult and I can do what I want now. Yes, you absolutely can. Nobody's saying you can't. This path is not for everyone either. What I'm saying is, eventually this world is going to break you. Eventually, and it might not. But eventually you might want a deeper meaning. You might want purpose. And you might find it in different things, I guess. Be a shallow... You won't even understand how shallow the comparison is between whatever purpose you think you have and one that God calls you to. Now, I want to read 1 Corinthians 10:31. You were created, you exist to glorify God. You were created to show God's glory, His greatness, His beauty, His worth. That's our duty. And then Acts 14:22, through many tribulations we must enter the kingdom of God. So we must go through hell to get there. You got to go through hell to get where you're going. in your 20s, you probably haven't been through hell. Maybe you have. But once you've gone through it, and once it's broken you, then you will finally be able to relate. You'll finally be able to relate to having that purpose. When you've had your purpose stripped away like mine was, and you've had everything stripped away, then you are finally willing to open your heart. But showing people before that happens what will come of how you can escape that existential hell, how you can escape living in agony, suffering all the time with no purpose or meaning. Because they haven't done it yet, so they don't know. So we must show them. We must show them what it means. Not push our judgments on them, not say that, God, Jesus is the way, the truth, the life. We can say that, but again, people of this world will just shy away from that if it has no meaning to it. I used to love creative writing. And of course, in creative writing, my writing teacher would always tell me, show, don't tell. I think that's one thing that Christians need to understand. If we show and don't tell until it's time, if we show an example of transformation. This is one big thing that God told me was my purpose, to show people His glory from taking a broken man who really wanted his life to end. Really just was so sick of the suffering. I would have ended it all if it wouldn't have been for my wife and children and my loved ones, and seeing what that's done to other families, and including my own. Taking that broken man and making him the most joyful, peaceful, wealthiest man alive. Now I say wealth, I have none of it. As Peter said to the lame man, gold and silver I do not have. But then he healed him in the name of Christ. I want you to understand, through the miracle God performed on people like me and millions of others, but sometimes they just still are too scared to show the world. Show, don't tell. And then when they're ready, let them hear the word. And when they do, and let's say they are an LGBT person and they choose to not to try to leave that life or to stay in it, that is between them and God. Because there are many sins that I'm trying to repent and change, but I don't know if I ever will. God kind of leads me to the most pressing ones in my life. And as I said, right now, I literally exist to show God's glory. So if there is something in my life that is keeping others from seeing that glory in me, I'm going to do what I can to change it. Not that I think I'm a bad person, not that I know I'm a bad person, we all are. Even the nicest people I've ever met are bad people. They've had horrible thoughts about things. They've done, nobody is without sin. But that's not what it's about. It's not about the judgment. It's about that relationship with God. And real quick before I go, I've already told you, I don't think it matters how you get to that relationship with God. I didn't come to it in the traditional Christian way. I thought God was showing me the truth in other ways, and universalism, and grabbing the best from every religion I could and putting it into my own religion. But he wasn't. He was showing me in a beautiful way, really, because he lets us all come to understand. He has patience. He lives outside of time. He doesn't care. He knows how the story's going to go. He has patience that we will find our way to him when the time is right. And he leaves breadcrumbs along the way. And it is miraculous. As I said, I've always loved Christ, and I always basked in that love. But I didn't understand it, and he never gave me direction until I was ready. Until I walked through my tribulation, I walked through my own hell. Let's see. Psalm 16:11. In his presence there is fullness of joy. At his right hand are pleasures forevermore. Ask someone who's been suffering if they could do something to escape this suffering that wasn't some temporary thing like drugs or alcohol, or even a surgery or something. Would they do it? And sadly, some of my oldest friends, they don't have the faith. They have hatred towards Christians because of the way they think they've treated people, and then they have treated people, including them. I have one old friend who's suffering immensely. And he hadn't talked to me in years, and finally he got a hold of me. I knew he'd been going through some really hard times, and I didn't push it in any way. I didn't even mention Christianity in any way. I brought up how God had saved, I'd had my spiritual awakening, and God had saved me, and didn't hear from him ever again. People, I used to get mad when people would refuse to hear anyone else out. And now I feel for them, because they are missing out on the absolute meaning and purpose that they have been craving, maybe not even knowing they've been craving. I know I've rambled a long time today. I love you all. God bless. We'll talk to you soon.